This is Work University, episode 53.
This is Work University, and I'm Annalisa Felix. This is where I interview people from various employment backgrounds and get the inside scoop on what their job is really like. If you're just getting into the workforce, or if you're curious about getting into something new, listen up. Hello, today we are speaking with Nicole Frail, who is a book editor. And Nicole, I'm so excited to learn about book editing and all of the things. So welcome, and thank you for coming today.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about all of the things.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it. So, what is it like to be a book editor? Take me through your day-to-day behind the curtain. What do we really not know about this that you want to share with us?
I think to jump right in, the thing that a lot of people don't realize about book editing, really the publishing industry in general, is that editors do way more than just edit books. We don't just sit and read all day long. There are certainly days where we can spend most of the time reading or editing, but the more books that are on your plate, the more emails, the more there's more conversations about the whole package. So it's not just sitting and reading and editing all day long. There's a lot.
So, how does your day start off, and what are some of the big rocks that you have to tackle first to get a certain, like you're working on a project? So, take us through that.
Yeah. So it differs depending on how big of I work for a independent publishing company, a smaller publishing company. I think there's about 50 of us across all the departments right now, possibly less. And so it depends on how big your company is. You might find yourself in conversations that range from with various different departments, or you might be solely responsible for just editing, just working on those books with your authors. So for mine, because we're smaller, I every day is different. Like really every day is different. I work on a variety of different books. I work with children's books. I work with adult books. I work with nonfiction. I could have a cookbook one day and a picture book the next day. So it's just kind of all over the place. But publishing is broken up into seasons. So you are working in spring, summer, or fall. Certain companies might have a small winter list, but there's not a lot of new books that come out in the begin or at the end of the year because it's hard to compete with Christmas, the holiday season. So usually my days start with a quick glance at my emails, and some days it could be emails all day, but I try really hard not to do that. If we could talk about like one book. So because my company is a little smaller, I am both an acquisitions editor and a project editor. At a bigger company, you might just be an acquisitions editor. So you bring the project in and then it gets assigned to a project editor. Or if you are the project editor, you just get that assignment. You don't really work to sign up the book. So with the book starting from an acquisitions editor standpoint, we have a submissions email, or editors might, depending on the company, might get direct submissions. And so I get a lot of submissions, and like I said, my company's smaller, so I can't even imagine what people at like the big five, what their boxes look like. But I get submissions directly to me, or I could go through the submissions email. And we're looking for things that we feel are a good fit for the company, things that we're personally interested in, things that we are told to find. And we review the submission. Sometimes it comes from the author directly. In my case, my company doesn't require agented submissions, but some companies you need an agent to submit to them. So I'll review it. I will, see how it's written, see if it grabs me, see, we pull comp titles. So we're always looking to see how books similar to the one that you've submitted did. We check with sales to see if sales thinks that they have customers for it. If the manuscript checks all the boxes, then I pitch it to my editorial director or my publisher, and they decide if we can offer on it. If we can, then I make the offer. And if the offer is accepted, then we negotiate the contract. And at a bigger or different company, that could go to somebody in legal, or somebody who specifically works on contracts. At my company, the acquisitions editor continues to work with the contract. So that's a conversation between either the author and the editor, or the editor and the agent. And the agent consults the author back and forth. That could be really quick, or it could take literally months.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a whole art to that, to the negotiation of the contract. Um, it's something else.
Yeah.
So when I say that, like, editors don't edit all day, if you're in this part, this could take up a lot of your time. And then once you have a signed contract, then it's all about basically positioning the book and deciding on, there's obviously a deadline in the contract, but then you've got all of your revisions, and you've got conversations about the book covers, and you've got conversations about metadata, and you have sales points to write for the sales team. You can, depending on the book itself, it could go through multiple rounds of edits. It could be super quick, like with our picture books. There's time to get the manuscript right, and then it's working with the illustrator, which is a whole different contract and set of negotiations, and a whole different set of deadlines. There's art direction. There's just there's a whole layer. So it depends on how many contributors you have to each project. And once you get the manuscript ready to go, then it goes to production.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be, if you didn't do your own copy editing, there could be copy editing with production. There's typesetting, which is getting the book to look like a book. There's layout, if it's got photos, if it has, extra art. Once it's typeset, there's proofreading, there's indexing. And then at the very end, there's, at least for us, we do our jacket design at the end, since we're certain what the book is about. We can put all the copy together and design the jacket around it. And then it goes to the printer, and then there's proofs, and then there's chat about, publicity and marketing and like all of that. So
Wow.
the life of a book is very long before it's actually in anybody's hands.
Right. Okay, you gave me a lot there, which is great, because being a book editor, for me who is not familiar with that position, you gave me so many different aspects, many different contributors.
Mm-hmm.
It touches, like, going from A to, the writer, to sitting on the shelf at, the bookstore or wherever. There's many people who touch it.
There's so many people.
So many people who touch it. And that can be a good, good information for somebody who wants to maybe be in, designing or marketing or research or editing or whatever.
Yes.
But it sounds like you wear many hats.
Yes.
Doing this. And at what point, like, how many projects can you have on your plate at one time?
So I mentioned we do have 3 seasons. So at my company, we have about 10 books per season per editor. It could be more, it could be less. It depends on, like, the books that we release aren't always true originals. They might be paperback reprints. They might be translations. They might just be repackages. So that happens when you want to give a book a second life. So you change the title and the cover, and you put it out to see if it could have a better second life. So some of the seasons are a mix of brand new original work that you have to take from that sign up to pub, and then other ones are a little less work. They still have a lot of they still need a lot of love in terms of, like, cover design and metadata and all the back end stuff, but at least it's not always a clean, like, you don't have to go all the way through from beginning to end with the edits.
Do you also work with audiobooks too, or is this physical books?
This is just physical books. When we acquire a book, we acquire audio rights sometimes, and then our rights agents try to sell them to audio publishers. So there's like a whole, like when you get into the contract part, there's dramatic rights, film and TV rights, there's audio rights, there's serial rights, book zine rights. There's just a whole different set of things that I'm not actually like part of. But that's another way into the publishing industry, is if you're into those kind of rights sales and contract negotiations, and literary agents tend to work with those a lot. Publishing
Wow.
lawyers.
Wow. And then there's ebooks. So, I mean, we can go in many different directions, but I won't. But what do you like about your job?
Oh, I like the editing is definitely, I think when you speak to an editor, that's what they thought they were going to do all day long. That's what everybody thinks you're doing all day long. But I think there's two parts that I love the most about my job, and it's the beginning and the end of every book. So in the beginning, when you get that first manuscript and you're putting your thoughts in it, and you're making notes and you're writing your editorial letters, when I have a finished letter and I send it off to my authors, and they write back and they're excited about it, and they can't wait to get started on revisions, or like, oh, you gave me a totally different idea that I like never would have thought of, or like, I love that part because it makes me feel like I'm good at what I do. And it makes me excited that they're excited again, because usually when you buy a book from an author, they've been through it so many times that they're sick of looking at it. So to know that like you can make them interested again in their own work, and make them think about their work differently, that always makes me feel like really good. And then my second favorite part is when authors record themselves like unboxing their books for the first time. Like they're like author copies in the mail, and they like, they slice open the package and they're so excited. And I just like, not every one of my authors records that, but that's like, I love seeing it. Like I when I first started, I've been with my company almost 11 years now.
Wow.
And when I first like saw one of those unboxing videos, which nobody was really doing 10 years ago, but
Hmm.
in recent years, I just remember like I showed my husband, I showed my mom. I was just like, look how happy is me, this person. It's just like, it's
Wow. Okay. So about your job, what do you like not so much?
mm. I think I don't like how easy it is to get sucked into other parts of it. Um, I think there's a lot of email, and you can spend your day like basically managing expectations and communicating with different departments and all these things that need your attention, that like there are days that go by, or even weeks that go by, where I haven't edited a single word. And I think that is just like it's disheartening. It's like the
Hmm.
thing I want to be doing, I can't get to. But
Hmm.
I have to remind myself that like a book is so many parts, and a book is so many people, and all of that needs your attention.
Now let's look at your career path and how you got here. Can you give us like, did you set out to be in a book editor, or maybe did a turn happen somewhere and you're like, whoa, this is cool. I think I want to stay here. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So growing up, I don't even think I knew like what publishing was. Like I know that I was always reading. I know I was always reading multiple books at a time. I remember getting a bunch of books out at the library once, and I like had started like 3 of them the same day. My mom was like, "You can't do that. Like you have to read one from like beginning to end." And it turns out that that skill actually is really important to have as a book editor, because I am on so many projects and I have to remember where I was in each one. Um, but I remember sitting down when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to major in, and I just don't even think I remember thinking about books, but I just had no idea like the path to get there.
Hmm.
So I figured I liked writing, I liked editing. So I went into communications and journalism in college. I was editor in chief of our university newspaper. I worked in our writing center. I like basically anything on campus that was writing, I was trying to like involve myself in. So I figured I wanted to be a writer, but then the more I edited for the paper, the more I realized that I would rather work with somebody else's writing than start it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So in college, I saw a call for a part-time position with an educational book production company. And I worked for them about 10 hours a week. And then when I graduated, they hired me full time. And I was writing basically like educational material, test prep materials. I wrote a couple of For Dummies books, cram plan books, that kind of stuff. And it was really nice. It was local. But like the longer I was there, the more I realized that like that wasn't the type of book I wanted to work on. Like I wanted to work in trade publishing. And I wanted to possibly work with like novels or my husband is a trained chef. So like I'm really interested in cookbooks and those different types of books. I didn't want to write test prep specifically. So I started applying for jobs in New York, in Boston, and any type of like publishing job I could like find that had like editor in the title or even like assistant to editor, like whatever would like
Mm-hmm.
get me in.
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't getting like any bites. And then a colleague at the time was like, "What if you applied for an internship?" And I was like, "But I already have." At that point, I had like 3 years. I was 3 years out of college. I was like, "I don't want to be a 24-year-old intern." But that was my in. Like that's my current company actually hired me as an intern.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 3 weeks later, they promoted me to an editorial assistant. And 11 years later, I'm a senior editor there. Uh,
Wow.
yeah.
That's great. Any crazy stories, any kind of bumps in the road, anything that you'd want to share that sticks out in your mind that, you know, if people only knew type of thing?
Um, I think the biggest bump actually, or I would say that that probably occurred when I was trying to get those internships. The person who hired me at my current job actually, uh, when I went in for the interview and everything, he was great. And then when I sent my follow up, like, "Thank you for like meeting with me. Let me know if you need any more information." He was like, "I kind of feel like you have too much experience for this internship role, but it's not experience in the right, it's not on the right path. Like
Mm,
educational and academic publishing is totally different than trade
mm,
publishing."
mhm,
Um, and so I wrote back and I was like, I understand that, but like I'm willing to start over and I want to start over. And whether that means, grabbing coffees for the office, or doing like the correct checking corrections, like whatever that step is, like I want that experience. So I'm
mhm,
okay starting at the bottom again. And that seemed to be what he needed to hear. And I feel like if I hadn't sent that follow-up, I might have just been brushed off as like not a good fit. So I had to like kind of prove that like that's what I wanted and I was willing to do the work to get there. And acknowledge that like my experience thus far wasn't exactly a perfect fit,
mhm.
but it could still work. The things that I
Yeah.
knew could still be applied.
Did you do any informational interviews with anyone or, because I think informational interviews falls in the, career search package with internships, job shadowing, informational interviews, all of that. And I'm glad that you did bring up how your internship did bring you to where you are now. And so that's amazing, for students or anybody willing to get into this field to know. So thank you for sharing that. What is it about authoring a book that people gravitate to? Because I know for a lot of things, especially now, people are like, well, if you've written a book, that's your foundation to get in. You can be a speaker, you can be a da-da-da, this and that, whatever. What is it about having a book with your name on it that really people gravitate to? What do you
I think especially in nonfiction, it kind of speaks to your credibility and um your expertise in the field. Because you might know, all the things about your specific subject area, but the fact that you were confident enough about it to write a book and to do the additional research for your manuscript, and a lot of books, especially traditionally published books, you are getting a forward by somebody in the field who is going to praise your book. You're getting blurbs, which are the endorsements on the cover, from people who are going to say, like, this is like the book you need to read on this subject, and this was well researched, and this person clearly knows what they're talking about. I think having all of that proves to the general book buyer, the general consumer, that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, and they are confident in the information that you're going to give them. And I think it could work with fiction too, because people buy fiction because they want to be entertained and they want to get lost in that world. And if you had the confidence to write a manuscript and go through the editorial process, which could be really brutal sometimes, and you came out on the other side and you're still proud of what you've worked on, and you've got these blurbs and endorsements and reviews saying, like, this is amazing. It gives people I think the confidence they need to spend the money on the book that you've written.
You mentioned a few times trade publishing. Really quickly, what is that referring to?
So traditional publishing, so anything outside of like academic and educational publishing. So your novels, your memoirs, your trade nonfiction, anything mostly in bookstores, not textbooks, generally not that like super academic based book.
Okay, letting me in on the behind the scenes lingo. I love it. All of that experience, all of that, your path. I mean, not only for 11 years, but everything up to it. Your college experience and your reading. You talked about your mom telling you, about reading one book as opposed to multitasking. These are all different things that fed into where you are right now, is what it sounds like to me. Have you written any books?
I have. I am mentioned in the books that I did for my first job. I didn't get a byline on those though. But I put together 2 quote books for my current company. I did the first one, The Little Red Book of Kitchen Wisdom, with my husband. At the time, he was my fiance. It's just a cute little gift book of quotes for the home cook and the professional cook. And then I wrote the little white book of wedding planning wisdom when I was planning our wedding. And that's just it's the same format. It's a bunch of quotes that I've collected from professionals and other people, former brides and grooms, who were planning their weddings and had stories to tell.
A lot there. What advice do you have for anybody who thinks they want to be a book editor and wants to head down that road? And what kind of, that you've experienced, what kind of person or what kind of skills do you think that they need, that are really recognized here in this career?
I think the biggest thing is to be a reader, to know what's out there, to know what's on the market, to know what has sold well. And also, if you're looking into, so there's different types of editing, but in general, if you want to work in trade publishing, you need to know the Chicago Manual of Style, because you'll most likely be given a copy editing test with any interview that you are granted. So you need to be able to, you don't know, like the book's like thousands of pages, so you don't need to know every single thing, but
Oh my gosh.
there's some basics, like we do use the serial comma, things like that they're going to test you on if you happen to get a copy editing test. I think another thing is that you don't necessarily need that English degree or that journalism degree or like a writing degree. I have worked with people who majored in business and philosophy, and it just kind of depends on how passionate you are about the books in the industry. You can also get a lot of experience before you start applying. That could be great to reference. You could, if you know somebody who's writing a book, you could alpha or beta read the book. And that's just basically taking their current manuscript and leaving comments about like what you love, what you don't, where you think like you got lost. That's always like super helpful. And a lot of people A lot of people will pay for that service. Some
Mm-hmm.
people don't charge for it, but some people do.
Who knew
Um,
that was a job?
yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
what is the title of that job, by the way?
so that's just it's you could offer beta reads, they're called. Alpha and beta reads. Alpha reads tend to come first, like very first draft. Beta reads come after the author has spent time revising the manuscript. You can, and that's really great practice because you are learning how to critically read the books. You do it from from a fan of that genre, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also like doing it to help the author. So
Mm-hmm.
any feedback that you could give, you're also learning how to give positive and constructive feedback. And then if you can get the author that you're working with to give you like a testimonial or to like go on the record saying like this was super helpful, having that is a really great experience to reference if you're able to get an interview for
Mm-hmm.
a publishing job.
Do people go to college wanting to be editors and come out? I guess that's communications or marketing, or what degrees would be best suited for something like this?
I think a lot of people who go into English either want
Mm.
to be teachers or work on books in some way. I see a lot of people go for their English degree and they specialize in creative writing. And they further pursue creative writing, either master's courses or publishing courses, which you can do, and that's a great way to network.
Mhm.
You never know who you're going to meet, who your
Mhm.
professors are going to be, and then you come out of there too, most of the time with a manuscript of your own,
Mhm.
and um, and the information that you need to like pursue either agents or publishing companies with that manuscript. But I think those programs really allow you to network, and I think that's a big part, whether you're in those programs or not. A big thing, an important thing to do is to network. You can add so many people these days on sites like LinkedIn. There's a lot of writers on Twitter still. Instagram has a ton of bookstagrammers. And so
Bookstagrammers.
yeah,
Oh,
they
that's a new
do.
one.
They review really popular works and they shoot beautiful photographs. Um, and that's another way that you can gain some industry experience. It's not like, through a company or anything like that, but if you have a passion for reading and writing reviews and making contact with authors, that's a really great in.
Nicole, where can we find you on social media? What do you want to share with us?
Yeah. So my website is NicoleFrail.com. And I am on Instagram and Facebook at Nicole Frail Edits. I do work full time for a publishing company, and I also have some freelance editorial services available for first time authors and self pub authors.
Awesome. Nicole, this was so jam-packed with so many goodies. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me. I'm always so excited to talk about books and publishing and all the ins and outs. So this was fun.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and leave a review. Or contact me at hello@workuniversity.org to work with me while you're on your job search journey.